And welcome to another edition of the Redeemed Vision podcast. I'm your host, Steve Pokorny. It is an honor to have you here. The Redeemed Vision podcast is an outreach of the work we do at freedom-coaching.net, where we are working to interrupt and disrupt the supply chain for trafficking by breaking men and women free from the chains of pornography and unchaste behavior. It's an honor to have you here, and we've got something very special lined up for you. If you'll notice, if you've been a fan of this podcast, we took a little hiatus for a while, and now we're finally getting our feet under us, getting back here. It's just been a busy time with the work we're doing. Also, you'll notice my background's a little bit different, right? Kind of spruced it up there with some interesting ideas here. If you got other books you'd like me to feature in the background, let me know. I may own them. I can't promise I've read them, but an honor to have you here. And before we get into introduction for our guests for today, just some housekeeping things here. Number one, I encourage you to check out Catholic Cast. That's CatholicCast.com. That's Catholic with one C in the middle. There's a collection of recordings for over 2 decades of Catholic conferences all over the world. You can't find them anywhere. You're sure to be enriched. It's $9.95 a month. It's a very low cost there. And it's to help you to develop the gift of yourself and to discover practical ways to live out the will of God in your life. And I also encourage you to check out Voyage Comics. And most oftentimes when we see Christian media, it's subpar. And Voyage Comics does not take that perspective. This is there's a plethora of amazing stories that are rooted strongly in the Catholic faith and that anyone of any age can pick up and enjoy. So we'll put a link on the bottom that when you support Voyage Comics, you support the work we do here at the Redeemed Vision podcast. And as I mentioned, Freedom Coaching is a one-to-one mentoring system that's designed to break the attraction to pornography and unchaste behavior, and through a transformation of mind, heart, and vision. So as we like to say, don't just quit, be transformed, break the power of porn. So if you're struggling or you know someone else is struggling, and this is a very easy way to get them into a life of genuine freedom. And then also this podcast, the Redeemed Vision podcast, is an outpouring and outreach of the Redeemed Vision Foundation Incorporated, where we need your help in growing this, especially for supporting clients who can't afford for our services. Yes, we like to eat. It's weird, I know, but also of the different elements of being able to spread this message, such as on this podcast, different talks, different avenues, different things that we would write and get out to the public. All of that goes to a great cause. I also encourage you, whatever platform you're on, listening to this or watching this, to click the bell, subscribe it, and most importantly, share this, because what we're talking about here on this podcast, especially today, is of critical importance for the world. So this past Easter Vigil, I had the opportunity, I should say more than Easter Vigil, past Holy Week. If you're in the Catholic world, this is the week right before Good Friday. It encompasses Good Friday and moving to Easter. In the East, I'm a Ruthenian Byzantine, and we celebrate this as the week of the bridegroom. And the Saturday prior to the start of Holy Week, which that Holy Week technically starts the Monday before Good Friday. I know it's confusing. Stick with me. The liturgy starts with the raising of the Lazarus. It's called Lazarus Saturday, and then Sunday is Palm Sunday, and then we move into a variety of other liturgies. There's actually, I think, if I have my numbers correct, 16 unique liturgies. As Father John Meffridge, who's at our parish, it's 3 hierarchs here in San Antonio. He likes to say that when Jesus is risen, I'm dead, because he has just celebrated so many different liturgies. He's exhausted, and by canon law, in the Melkite tradition, they get the entire week off, Monday through Friday. So I don't bother calling him, texting him, emailing him, because I know he will be dead to the world in a good way, even though he's married with 4 children. But it's It's a profound experience to have him in our parish. So what we experienced was a profound experience of beauty. It was through the entire liturgy, moved the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, going into the tomb with Christ and being raised forth. And including in this, we're a small parish. I'm a Ruthenian Byzantine going to a Melkite Byzantine parish. I'll talk about that on another podcast. And in this, we had 4 catechumens who came in. They were not baptized at all, received their baptism, chrismation, and First Holy Eucharist. Truly beautiful, and to be able to share this experience of beauty with them and moving forward. So that growth is very exciting to me. Now, I mentioned very important word a couple times here, and it's beauty. And on the Redeemed Vision podcast, this is one of our favorite topics. And beauty can be found in many forms in all of the world. It's all around us. But a couple questions. Can you see it? Can you perceive beauty? Would you know beauty when it's presented to you, or would you fall for the counterfeits? A lot of people have trouble with this. And so to help us to sort all this out is Buchi O'Maria Akpati, or O'Maria, to help me be able to say her name well. She's an amazing, amazing gift to the world. She's the founder and CEO of what's called Beauty Unbound. It's the world's first beauty enterprise, helping women realize their God-given beauty. Oh man, I can't wait to talk about this. She uses online courses, coaching retreats, and journeys with women who struggle to feel beautiful just the way they are. And so O'Maria teaches her audience by exposing the world's unrealistic beauty standards. She reveals God's truth to women about their innate beauty and equips them with practical tools for life-giving Godfidence. Oh, there's a new word. That's fun. I want to talk about that. A continual relationship with Jesus Christ and a true devotion to his mother, Mary. In the East, we call that her the Theotokos, to the God bearer. Her entire Beauty Unbound curriculum is inspired by a very important saint. I'm not going to spoil it here. I'm going to let her share who that is, and infuses her beauty coursework with insights on prayer based on previous years' experience of a discalcid, that's hard to say, discalcid Carmelite nun who lived without a mirror and with 23 hours of silence daily. How about you try half of that, or maybe 1 hour of that? We have trouble with silence, but I promise on this podcast, there will be anything but silence. But engaging that is really important. Prior to this, O'Maria was a celebrity makeup artist for over a decade with extensive knowledge on where true beauty finds its source. Fusing this with the fullness and richness of the Catholic faith, O'Maria encourages women of all ages, cultures, and creeds to set the world on fire with their true beauty, the love of God, and a relentless pursuit of virtue. And without any further ado, O'Maria, welcome to the Redeemed Vision podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's so good to be with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you. So I want to get this out of the out of the box. First off, you have a very unique name here, right? O'Maria, and you can go with the entire full name. I want to know, because again, you're coming from a very different, originally a very different culture. You're living in the U.S. currently.
Yes.
Where did that name come from? And yeah, share a little bit about that. Let's start there.
Absolutely. So my name, O'Maria, is the truncated form of my full first name, which is Buchi Maria. My birth name being Buchi, which is Nigerian from the Igbo language in Nigeria, West Africa. And Buchi means who is like unto God, so like Michael the Archangel. And Maria got added onto my name in love when I became total consecrated to Jesus through Mary in the year 2016. And at the conclusion of that spiritual formation, each of us were asked to add on a form of Mary to our names. So I chose Maria, as I love the Spanish language and speak it, and I thought Maria is very fitting. So Buchi then became Buchi Maria. And to make it simple and truncated, so there's now Maria. And that's been the name I've been called on social media for the last almost 10 years, since I've been using digital media to promote Marian insights. And so here we are today, still clinging on to the name. So death do us part.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. I love it. And it's an exuberant, joyful, I feel like an explosion from your soul. Oh, Maria. It's gorgeous.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. And for
Yes.
you and I, we connected through an accelerator program through Cent Ventures. And
Yes.
I think what you're doing now, you're accelerating something even more. I don't know if it's not, well, it's crazy important, right? And perhaps even more important, right? So let's dig into what you're doing. So you're the founder and CEO of Beauty Unbound.
Yes.
And actually, what was that word? The God, what was the word? The
Godfidence.
Godfidence. Like,
Yes.
go for that. What? Tell us more as we're going to names, defining terms there. What is Godfidence?
Godfidence is the accurate, full, most robust expression of what the world thinks confidence is. So just if you think it or you act like it, you are assured of what comes from within you and where all your strength, all your talent, all your virtue, all your merits come from, which is God's grace. And so Godfidence is your conviction of God dwelling in your soul by grace and how that then oozes out of you and radiates out of you. That's Godfidence. So Godfidence is the way you speak, the way you behave, the way you treat others, your just yourself, your comportment and self-governance. That is Godfidence. So it's, I would say it's a more pure, whole, true version of what the world thinks confidence is, which is often man-made or
Mm,
man-initiated. But Godfidence, God is your fuel, grace is your fuel that then sets you ablaze. So setting
amen.
the world on fire with confidence is where we are at.
Amen. And I think I'll define another term here in Freedom Coaching and the Redeemed Vision podcast. The term grace, we often define that as the life, love, and power of God. So combine that grace, what is oozing, I love that phrase, it's a good word, oozing out of us with Godfidence, right? Of that life, that love, that power comes not doesn't originate us from us, but is we are conduit for that, right? We are a means of that coming out to the world. And is that not the principle of the incarnation, that we are to be a participant in sharing this with the world? I love it. I need to start Godfidence. I need to start bringing this into my lingo. Isn't it? Words are fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
So your work with Beauty Unbound, obviously, let's unpack this, because I think it's, again, getting into the words themselves have meaning, and when we don't use the appropriate, if we don't have the appropriate working base, we can talk, and maybe at least we can talk past each other, or at best we talk past each other. At worst, we can use these things to manipulate, control situations in ways that are not healthy. So the term beauty, I'm going to just softball it out to you. What does beauty mean to you?
Beauty to me means being fueled from St. Thomas Aquinas's definition, because that greatly influenced me. Beauty is that which, when it's seen by God, pleases him, which means every single creature, every single thing God created, the sun, the moon, the stars, the water, the plants, especially the only aspect of God's creation that was made in his image and likeness. And so, for that reason, man and woman, he created them. He saw that they were very good. So, by default, every single man and woman alive is beauty, is beautiful. It might be quite odd for a man to be described as beautiful, but when we understand it under that lens of God created you in his image and likeness, and for that reason, he saw you are good. And so you emanate his creation and you are his part of his unique expression of his love in the world. You are beautiful. So beauty is that which, when it's seen, pleases God, in a nutshell.
I think it's great. And especially you hit on something, and I think it is a sore spot for some men, that like, man, I'm not beautiful. Well, we are, if we're coming from that perspective. The emanation, which is a great way to say it, Maria, right? The emanation of God. We're the divine spark, and sharing this with the world, right? Which, again, that's speaking into Godfidence, which is wonderful here, right? So you have this something emanating from God. There's something along that, and again, we're grasping with divine realities. So our language is going to pale in comparison. For instance, when Thomas Aquinas, when he went into a coma, I think it was about 3 weeks, and they woke him up, and he says, "Take everything I wrote and burn it. It's all straw." Why did he say that? And thank God they didn't burn it, because we needed that at the Council of Trent about 400 years later, right? But within this here, because his writings are very profound, 300 years, excuse me. And from here, it's he had a direct experience of God, right? And that's what is supposed to be happening when we encounter others. So let's go into so you gave a good working definition for beauty, which we can run with. So how would you say that compares with what the world gives for their definitions of beauty?
It's the way the world presents beauty is absolutely inverted. Absolutely, it's false. It's distorted. It's just a complete bouquet of lies. The world presents beauty as only external, which then subtracts, or rather alienates, the Godfident and the God part. The God factor completely alienates beauty from the source. And so it limits and stifles beauty down to external alone. It also makes beauty be dependent upon trends or products, if we're relating to women and how the beauty industry is billions and billions of dollars every year in the United States alone. So beauty is often presented as, this is the product that makes you beautiful, even if it is a moisturizer or a powder or whatever it is, or lip balm. Beauty is often defined as a thing, and beauty is often very presumptuous, thinking that, oh, because I have this product or know this new beauty technique or finally have gotten this cosmetic procedure, I am now beautiful. And so that then distorts it completely.
We are experiencing a little technical difficulties here. And on the podcast, welcome to using technology. And perhaps somebody doesn't want us talking here. Oh, Jesus, would you help the technology? Oh, there we go. All right, we're coming back in with her. No problem. Well, somebody doesn't want us talking about this, right? As we so Maria, no worries about that. We like to say that if there are technological difficulties, it's not the Redeemed Vision podcast.
And I'm sprinkling my holy water on my technological devices right now. Again, I did not do it enough. I am making the sign of the cross on my mic and my headphones.
So we know for a fact, because that just happened, we're over the target here in a very important fact, right? So I'll sum up a little bit what you said, because obviously we can talk about this. These are seminars that we're doing. We're giving just a touch of this, so that the encouragement and my hope is that others are going to reach out to you. We're going to head over to beautyunbound.tv to get to know you a little bit more. So I want to take a step back. I'd like to go back to kind of the beginning of your life in a certain sense, because that's one of the things we like to do here on this podcast is it's not simply know about, you have something very special to share, and with the work you're doing, but who are you, Maria, right? So you grew up, obviously, a very different culture. You grew up in Nigeria. You were in Nigeria until when?
Until I was 9 years old.
Okay, 9 years old. Wonderful. Okay, so there's a good amount there. You remember a good amount. So what were the messages that, maybe it's a two-part question. Let's go. So 2 parts, and then answer these separately if you would. And we want to dig into a little bit of your history here. Number one, what was the experience of growing up in your household, dad, mom, of the messages about beauty that were shared? And then second, growing up in Nigeria, how would you categorize the differences between the Nigerian culture and the U.S. culture regarding this topic of beauty?
I would say, dialing back to my childhood, beauty was, from my father, there wasn't much of mention of beauty or innate beauty or you are beautiful as an affirmation. There wasn't much there. As for my mom, and this is with complete love and acceptance of the household in which I grew up in, growing up, the message was quite discouraging in terms of beauty. I was at some point um, highly persuaded, greatly persuaded, to bleach my skin so I can be lighter, or to bleach out parts of my skin in which there were acne scars. Additionally, in many instances growing up, I was told to have put on a wig or have artificial hair so that my hair can be silkier and match up with Americans that I was now around. Now, prior to the age of 9, when I was in Nigeria, it wasn't as strong of the pressure from family or those around me, but moving to the United States at the age of 9, being the only woman of color or girl of color in the Catholic school that I was in, and just the differences in my accent and the culture and seeing snow and winter time and just everything, I was then being pressured to bleach my skin, have silkier hair, um, be slimmer, just be super strict with my eating habits so I don't get overweight. So that was unfortunately the environment in which I grew up in, not knowing how much that impacted me till in several years later, discerned a religious vocation in which I had no mirrors and I had to face those insecurities I thought were not there. So I would say
What?
that's a little bit on my history.
Thank you, thank you. And so, what? And I'll come back to the second question because I want to dig into this first question here. So, how would you say that impacted your own self identity? Your own, yeah. How open question there.
For the longest time, I thought I needed to have my hair relaxed or treated, or I hated wigs. I did not like wigs, but I thought I needed to have some kind of artificial hair on my head, for one, to be pleasing to the female members of my family who loved that trend and beauty look, so to speak. And I thought that I was not beautiful in my raw, natural state without any makeup because I was often reprimanded for not wearing enough makeup and not showing enough skin, just very distorted images of beauty that my loved ones, unfortunately, believed false messaging and then tried to transmit that over to me as the youngest of 5 in my family. So I grew up not really believing I was beautiful unless I had on a little bit more makeup, or at least my eyebrows filled in, or at least a little bit of artificial hair here and there to be presentable or marketable or attractive to men. That was actually the message that I got from a loved one in my family was don't wear that round scapular or miraculous medal externally. You're going to chase off men. Instead, show a little bit more skin. This skirt you're wearing is too much below your knees. Like, you've got to really revamp your beauty look. More makeup is barely there. We need to see a little bit more. And so that was essentially, this might even be the first time that I'm speaking of this publicly, but that was the first, yeah, my first touch with that kind of reaction, especially coming from blood relatives. So it sinks in more as if it's truth when in fact it's not.
So, if you'll permit me, and thank you for getting spiritually naked here, right? About these things,
Yeah.
right? What did that feel like when you yeah, what is that? I assume there was kind of a struggle because you're trying to do it one way. Your family, maybe some friends, have another idea about what beauty should be. What was going on inside your soul there, in your
Inside
heart?
of me, I felt as if I had to do in order to love. And this translated into my spiritual life and my perception of God as one who I need to be perfect in a certain way before I can approach him, before I'm worthy of his love. I would say that's what that did in my soul was I felt I needed to achieve, whether it's I never, and by the way, just to clarify, I never bleached my skin or anything like that. Thanks be to God.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was tempted many times to do so. But in my soul, I felt as if I was unworthy of love, of acceptance, of God's grace, of God's attention, of God's outpouring of whatever gifts and graces He wishes to give me, unless I became beautiful. That was so
Um,
damaging in many,
yeah.
many layers that we can
Mm-hmm.
unpack or have a second episode. But that did unforeseen, internal, like unperceptible damage that when I then lived a life of silence, many of those things were unearthed because I got to face myself and God alone.
So, with what you're sharing here, Maria, super painful experience, which is unfortunately not uncommon amongst women today. And we say here, especially at the Redeemed Vision podcast, a lot of this, it comes from a pornified understanding of the human person, of a false vision, a false narrative of the human person. And you experience this idea, and again, I'm using my words, so please feel free to use yours, an earned love mentality. If I do this, I will get this. Input in, I'll get that export. Does that register there? So
Absolutely right. Spot on.
And again, we never glorify sin, okay, in any of the work we do. How would you say, though, just so people can, we're looking to be able to relate to you, how would you say this was manifested from those messages? What were those messages? Because obviously you've shared with what was being taught. What messages did you believe, and how did that impact various behaviors?
For me, the message that you need this product, you need to be perfect, you need to hide your Catholic faith in order to be acceptable. The way that impacted me was I then was afraid. I was afraid of rejection, and most of all, afraid of being fully who O Maria is, being loving my natural face, choosing to wear makeup occasionally. And it led me into a downward spiral, actually, where I dealt with a number of addictive behaviors for over 18 years of my life. From 9 years old, when I moved from Nigeria to the United States, for almost 18 years of my life, Steve, I struggled with many addictions, one of which was pornography. I will disclose here in this podcast because I believe it's very fitting. Just feeling unloved, feeling like I need to do, feeling like I'm not accepted, acceptable to family, to God, to loved ones. And so it was just from that small persuasion of more makeup, more skin. You need to become beautiful. This is the way
Yes.
to become beautiful. It led me
Yeah.
down just a dark path.
And just to touch on that point, and thank you for sharing about the struggle of pornography, because there's still elements and pockets. I think it's only a male issue, and it has become sadly more and more. It's sad on both points, men and an increasing number of women. What were the messages of pornography that you were receiving? What was it for you in your experience? What was it? What was the hole that it was attempting to fill for you?
For me, it was because of the fact that many women who might be advertised in a pornographic way were quote unquote beautiful. The image and the pressure was, oh, she is beautiful. She has whatever body, size -7 dress size and makeup and everything, the complete package. For me, the impact on me that had was the exact opposite effect of what I was seeking. I was seeking acceptance. I was seeking love. I was seeking to be acceptable. What I got was self rejection. What I also got was everything in the middle of that.
So you raise a really important point here, Maria. You mentioned about the issue of pornography use of your own, and thank you for being willing to be vulnerable here. And I think there's a lot of misnomers and misunderstandings. That's for a lot of years it's been just a male issue, which is a major problem, but it's an increasing number of women have been involved in this. So for you, I think your voice is really important here on this issue. So when you were engaging in this behavior, again, we don't need details, but what were the messages that you were receiving from those images, from what you were seeing or experiencing, and what was the need, the apparent need, or perhaps real need that was trying to fill there?
I would say the messages that I would receive, whether mentally or emotionally, was this is beauty, this is pleasure, this is perfection, this is acceptance, as that was what I was seeking deep down. And what I received instead, so that's of course that of course was a lie from the pit of hell, because the more I watched or whatever the sin would lead to thereafter, I would lead to the exact opposite. I would lead to despair. I would be led to depression. I was led to self-hatred, self-loathing, not wanting to live anymore at some point, being completely desolate, completely desolate, being so frustrated with myself for going to confession, confessing the same sins that I just confessed hours or days ago. That's what that led to. And that further emphasized my disbelief in my own God-given beauty.
Mm,
And along with it, it led me to, and this is one of what I believe is one of the dangers of worldly beauty standards, whether it's related to pornography or whatever, just very disordered presentations of beauty and self-image, is inconstancy of mind. I could not make like making the resolution of I'm going to stop this, pornography use. It's so addictive. So your mind is inconstant. Your resolutions are weak-willed, and it just became a continuous cycle. And only God's grace, professional help, and emphasis on God's grace and healing power set me free, especially through the intercession of the Theotokos, Mary, the mother of Jesus.
amen.
So essentially, what I went into those pornographic images seeking gave me the exact opposite. It was advertised as this is, you know, wonderful, but it was from the pit of hell,
Mm,
and I
amen.
experienced that
Amen.
firsthand.
Amen. And thank you for sharing that, because I think this message needs to come out, because I think from, I won't name her, but one of the a very major player in the pornography industry still today. Um, she expressed that when she was about 8 years old, came upon her father's pornographic magazines, and whereas for a lot of women, when they see these images from discussions with them, has been, ooh, it's dirty images, it's something gross. She saw this as these are very beautiful women who were powerful, that notion of power. And I think especially, this is one of the aspects of from the fall of Eve, that notion of wanting to be in control at all the times, right? And yes, both men and women experience this, but especially it's found in women, and comes out oftentimes in manipulation, and women who have a very important element of beauty. As we said, I don't want to interrupt the fact that men have beauty as well, right? But within this here, that it can be taken over because of feeling I'm out of control here, so I have to control my exteriors. And actually, let's pivot the conversation away from pornography to and whole of the beauty industry, because you had worked with celebrities. You had done a lot on the facials, and you can use the language better than I do. My daughters can run circles around me. I have a 13 and 11-year-old. They're now all into all of that, right? And that's a whole nother conversation, right, about the affirmation of my daughters and their beauty, right, of young children. But what was it that in that industry that you saw there that just was not satisfying you, that called you out to, like, I want something more here?
From doing celebrity makeup, I believe it was the attachment to externals only,
Mm,
and the emphasis on looking like someone totally different from who you actually are, being equated with beauty. That for me began to make me feel very unsettled, like there's something off with this. Many of my clients, I noticed at some point, began to request more and more layers of makeup, more and more layers of makeup that greatly contrasted their natural skin color.
mhm.
And so they would go on the red carpet, they would go on music video sets or movie sets or television show tapings and look like someone else. And the more I tried to convince them, as a beauty professional, having worked in the industry since 2007, this is the best, you know, shade of powder you need or contour intensity you need. And having a celebrity client at one point almost hit me and growled at me. That was the
Wow.
point in which she was greatly aggravated and wanted a really dark contour on her cheekbones that would not have looked good under those red carpet lights. And she wanted what she wanted and growled and almost hit me, and then she just flew into the restroom and slammed the door and did not come out. So the
Wow.
experience I had there was a great a great obsession with looking 7 shades lighter than your real skin complexion as a woman of color. A great obsession with looking at American red carpets from the Oscars or Grammys or Emmys and thinking, I want that makeup on that celebrity who is actually 5 shades lighter than you, and wanting to replicate that because the celebrity police on E! Online had her as the best dressed and best makeup and hair. So the American influence, them wanting to just simply just transplant, just get exactly that shade, it was so distorted that I left the industry because I knew there's more to beauty, even though I did not know I had my own insecurities to deal with until I lived a life of silence that then unearthed for me. But working with celebrity clients on makeup alone was very dissatisfying. So that then pivoted me to being now a beauty coach, Catholic beauty coach, or if it's a non-Catholic client, I call myself I'm a Catholic Christian beauty coach to emphasize the viewpoint through which I minister to women, I pour into them, I share truth to them. Very pro-life, very Catholic Christian. So
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think, this is why your background story is so darn important, because oftentimes I like to say that the shadow proves the sunshine. Okay. The things that we're aching for, when they don't add up, the brokenness points there's got to be something more. And you tapped right into and you were, again, there was enough grace there involved, right? Whether latent or objective or present, shall we say, that you start asking some really important questions here, right? So let's go. I want to go to a personal question, then these are all personal. Your person. So you moved in you were in the Carmelites for how many years in the Carmelites?
I was discerned for 2 years.
Okay, praise God.
Grace-filled years. Yes.
Praise God. I was in seminary for 4 years, so here we are, right? We know a little bit of that discernment of that life. What would you say that begin to, because we use the language of makeup. You would put a lot of makeup, physically and metaphorically, on yourself. What were the messages that God started speaking to you? As Carmelites are very contemplative. What were the messages that he started speaking there that began to, shall we say, flake away the makeup?
I would say the key message was, you are enough. You are mine. You are sufficient. Draw closer to me in silence and solitude and stillness, and I will speak my truth to you directly.
How long did it take you to get that message? To get those messages, like get it?
3 to 6 months in
Yeah.
the cloister. 3 to 6 months in.
So let's do the reverse on that.
At first, it was very uncomfortable. At first, it was like, my goodness, I can't see myself. Why do the restrooms have no mirrors? This is not a ladies' room. This is like this is a basement. Where are the mirrors? All the doors are wooden. I need glass somewhere. Can somebody give me glass, please? I need a glass window somewhere, please.
Mm-hmm.
The glass windows were frosted. It's like I can't even see outside. Anyway, it was being alone with the alone. That's how I would describe it.
And we're afraid of that, aren't we? Right? Because then we got to deal.
Terrified.
We're terrified. Why do you think we're terrified?
Because we have not been taught the beauty, of course, because we're speaking of beauty, but we have not been taught the beauty of silence and the fruit that comes from it. And for that reason, it feels uncomfortable naturally. For one who has not touched it, been taught about it, experienced it, and borne the fruits of silence, it will then be looked at with discomfort, disdain, reluctance. It's like, this is not palatable. Why would anyone want silence? Put the radio on, somebody, please.
Yes.
So we're just so unfamiliar with it. And the world by default is very noisy. I recall when I left the Carmelite Monastery, just a motorcycle going by, the school bus, the bright colors and sounds, and go by a park and everyone screaming and talking. I remember my first social event, which took me almost 4 months to be able to go to a gathering after Mass on Sunday. There was like coffee and donuts, just a basic coffee and donut gathering. When I stepped in, Steve, the Lord is my witness, I almost lost my mind
Mm.
because everyone was talking. It was like everyone was talking over each other at the same time. So I could almost hear every single person in that hall, which maybe have been 50 people, and the person they were speaking to and the person who was speaking just talking over each other. I could not last in there beyond 3 minutes. I just had to rush out. It was super overstimulating. So the world is very uncomfortable with silence because no one has been taught. It's not advertised. Every place you see, there is a nightclub or a bar or a restaurant or a movie theater or a grocery store or someplace for recreation. That's just noisy,
Um,
noisy.
our our conversation has taken a very interesting turn because as you are talking, as you're sharing, I should say, you're more than talking. Um, I think of Cardinal Seurat, right? The I think it's a power of silence. Is that in the book? I think that's the title of the book. And
Against the dictatorship of noise. Yeah.
yes, and I think that noise and again connecting these conversations. Oh man, I think we're gonna have a whole. I'm gonna have to have you on. We'll talk again about noise itself because that's a whole and silence and all that. So pencil that in if you're willing to have me again, Maria.
For sure.
But think of the noise again. Stick with a metaphor here. Those who are hearing this conversation, right? The metaphor of the noise of beauty, of the beauty industry, right? That all these different conflicting messages that are coming out against us, and right, and obviously to respect your time, moving into some solutions, and that's where I'd like to obviously highlight some of the work you're doing. But for a young lady, maybe not so young lady, who's hearing this maybe for the first time, our podcast gets shared in various ways. It's kind of interesting to me. What's the first place to start, right? If they've been into the quote unquote beauty industry, they like their makeup, their hair getting done, nails all perfectly. I'm not manicured, I promise. My daughters try, they fail. Where would you say is the first place to start?
The first place to begin is through an understanding of the beauty in the world. I have two courses right now, online courses, both of which begin with a 100-year history of beauty in the world. Just 100-year, not even a millennium, just 100-year history of beauty in the world, highlighting women in each decade that the world has presented to us as beautiful. And as that progression takes place, there is a pattern. One is able to see whether or not the woman who hears me loves makeup, wears it, is aware of it, or a mixture of both. I would say understanding how the world has presented beauty, seeing how, for one, it's been solely external. There's been no mention of anything internal, anything godly, anything virtuous, anything about holiness, anything as emanating from God. It's been a thing we have always been sold. So any woman beginning the journey will take a look at what beauty has been presented as over the last decade. Secondly, how has that impacted your vision, your view of your own beauty, of your own self-image? When you see a woman who has wearing waist trainer and is a size 0 and has gone through 36 cosmetic surgeries, has 3 layers of eyelashes constantly, has all these cosmetic procedures, all the pictures you see of her on social media are filtered with 5 different filters in 4 different phone apps, along with cosmetic surgeries
Yep.
on top of that as a top coat. When we see these patterns, how has that made you feel about yourself? Chances are it makes the woman feel inadequate. She needs to strive to do more. She needs to keep up with the trends, or she just shuts down and isolates from social situations and never shows her picture on social media because it doesn't match up compared with all of the other influencers, social media celebrities, people she sees on magazines, television, music videos. So start with the world, identify how that's impacted you very, very personally. So there's a lot of reflection and journaling and prayer that's necessary for this to be unearthed, because no one has presented women with these questions ever before. So it requires some silence and stillness. From there, it's important to then meet your own half truths about your beauty or full truths about your beauty with God's truth about your beauty, which is that God states that you are made in his image and likeness, you are his masterpiece. So, using scripture and teachings of the saints like St. Thomas Aquinas and another saint that my entire curriculum is modeled after, taking the woman through God's truth about her beauty to then, who is the most beautiful woman who ever existed? Now that we know what the world has created as beauty, who is beauty herself? What's her name? And what makes her what makes her beautiful? She's a God bearer. She's the
Yes.
mother of God. She's the only one who has that dignity and title. And she's full of grace. She's full of virtue. Then I crack open what virtues that those are, her 10 principal virtues out of her 64. And concluding that journey with women is, how do we then take what we now know about the world's lies, the truth about your beauty as God says it, and the most exemplary woman and many women of beauty that I mentioned who are exemplary in virtue, which are female saints or saints to be, and then living that truth out weekly, daily, monthly, annually through theocentric beauty rituals. So on a weekly basis, if you are a woman who loves makeup and wears it daily, take a 1 day makeup free day and mirror free day. So I give guidance on this, or every month do a personal retreat, a beauty retreat, and I give guidance on that, or annually. So I give practical tools, but most importantly, it's having a life of prayer, of gazing upon God, who you know now loves you exactly as you are. 5 minutes of stillness every day, whether you are a 7-year-old young lady or you're 65 and better with 7 great grandchildren or a new mom or new wife. 5 minutes minimum every day of stillness and silence. So those are some of the ways, but first starting with what the world has been giving us so we can better see the huge contrast between the world and what true beauty is and what God says, and then living that out with confidence is where then the daily, weekly, monthly, annual way of life is then introduced through coaching and accompaniment, because this is not just this message is not successful, or it doesn't seep in as deep if it's just a I have two courses. One is about a 1 week long course, another is 33-day long course. That's not enough, because after day 34, the
Yeah.
world is just killing us with these trends. Every new week, there's a new limited edition spring season product. So ongoing accompaniment is needed, which is where I then journey with women weekly or bi-monthly is what I'm currently doing, hosting free webinars second and fourth Tuesday of every month until further
Beautiful.
notice for free, just to get women speaking on one aspect of the beauty truths.
I love
So
it. I love it. I love it. And as you're talking, as there's so much, again, going back to that issue of noise, that we're being bombarded by this. We can only live in the lies for so long until a well, it can go many, many ways, right? But for some who have any semblance of wanting more, there's got to be the breaking down of that. And I think that silence is really important. But again, let's be very real. That's terrifying, because I'm the one who's been in control for so long. I put on, again, I'm speaking as a woman if I can, right? I'm the one who puts on the makeup. I'm the one who does my hair. I'm the one who gets myself ready in the day. And now the mess I'm getting I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be fulfilled by what I'm seeing. It's not coming here. There's got to be something more. And then you're presenting to do it's almost a baptism by fire in a certain sense. And what I think the biggest virtue that's needed in this sense is courage. You have to have courage to face yourself, to face the reality here. But I want to encourage those who are hearing this. Maybe there's a bit of a disquiet in the heart there, and disquiet in the soul, that you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. free from all the nonsense, free from all the lies, free from the makeup tips that say you can look younger, more beautiful, more sexy, more whatever that is. Instead, to stand in your true power of who you are, because it's only in relation to what God gives to us. That's where our true power really comes from. So
Absolutely right.
I love what you're doing here. And so Dostoevsky, Russian writer, right? He once wrote, "Beauty will save the world." I know you mentioned this to me off air. Why is that message so important for you?
Because beauty is something that attracts everyone. Everyone, when they perceive something beautiful, whether it's a lovely architectural structure, a cathedral or basilica, or flowers in a garden, or a beautiful sunset, or a woman that's modestly dressed and is carrying herself very well and has a great smile and is very generous. Beauty attracts every soul, regardless of their age, their culture, and their creed. So beauty will save the world when the world realizes what true beauty means, points their gaze on true beauty, which is God, continually on a daily basis. And so when we realize what true beauty is, which is it comes from within, it is holy. True beauty never leads you to lust. True beauty never leads you to feeling inadequate. If it is, it's distorted or false beauty. True beauty is constant. So when we have the building blocks and knowledge of what and who true beauty is, we can keep our gaze on God continually. And what happens when we behold him? We get a suntan, an SON tan. And when we behold God continually, we radiate him. He gives us his grace. We are receptive to it. We receive his grace and we become saints. So beauty will save the world when all souls gaze on him and become all saints. And that's how to save anyone is not to go and only preach to them, but reform yourself, save your soul, become a saint, and everyone around you will follow suit sooner rather than later. Even if you die a martyr's death because they don't like your expression of the fervor of your faith, at some point the blood from your martyrdom might kill someone, sprinkle in the eye, and behold, he or she was a saint after all. So beauty will form saints. True beauty will save the world.
Amen. Amen. Actually, on a very, very real level, when the person, I don't know if you knew this, the person who pierced the side of Jesus was a Roman soldier by the name of Longinus. And it's believed through Christian tradition that he was partially or fully blind on some level. And when the blood and water flowed and hit him, he instantly could see. And this is why he proclaimed, truly, this was the Son of God. Right, truly.
Correct. That's where I got it from. Yes.
Beautiful. Oh, good. I'm glad you know that. Not many people know that. And then he would go on to become a Catholic bishop. He abandoned the Roman, which is amazing. Very, very amazing. But even think of this: we may never experience red martyrdom like many martyrs that have come in the past, but a white martyrdom's here, right? And I think especially because I think of going to the supermarket with my daughters, and even though I think with the whole Me Too movement that came out when it's about 2015, there has been a shifting of some, even just the magazines and things like that. But it's still, there's a great power there, not a godly power, that is trying to convince them you have to fit into this box, whatever this is, to be acceptable, and to stand against that. Shall we call it a juggernaut of the I hate using the term, and maybe you have a better terminology of the beauty industry, right? To stand against that requires the feminine fortitude of the great ones of the past, of Judith, of Esther in the Old Testament, of Our Lady in the New Testament. And then even just, let's go with Mother Teresa, right? Who physically had skin that would not be on the cover of the beauty magazines, but it was not the skin that primarily attracted, even though her smile was amazing, right? It was her heart that radiated out here that was screaming feminine virtue. That is what is most beautiful of women. And oh, Maria, you are physically beautiful, but I can tell just by the confidence that is coming out from this, you're radiating that here. So anybody who's just listening to the podcast, you're going to have to go and check out the video on this as we move forward. Now, we have just a couple minutes from here. So I want to give just kind of a platform, and you've talked a little bit about it. When people go to check out, when women go over to Beauty Unbound, you mentioned some courses, you mentioned some, I don't want to steal your thunder. I want you to lay it out. What is available for them practically to experience there?
I would say the first thing are the live events, live online events that I host bi-monthly. So along with the courses, which are available for them to try out for a week for free and purchase after that. And along with it, there's continuing beauty formation or education from the course side of things. So there are going to be weekly multimedia content that's released beyond the completion of whichever course they purchase. And along with it, I also have my bi-monthly webinars for free. So those are live events. They're similar to group coaching style, which in the upcoming months, later on in 2024, I'm presenting the information fresh for those who are unfamiliar. So second and fourth Tuesday of every month, I host a free beauty webinar speaking on different facets of beauty. So that's one aspect of it. And every month, the last Saturday of every month, I'm also hosting free, for a limited time, free beauty retreats online. So all the information can be found on beautyunbound.tv. So just to recap, there are the bi-monthly free beauty webinars second and fourth Tuesday of the month, and free beauty retreat, which is a 1-hour timeout, practicing a little bit of the silence we spoke of and stillness we also spoke of for 1 hour on a Saturday. And even if the woman is unavailable at that time, if she registers, she'll get the playback to then retreat at a time convenient for her in whatever time zone that she lives in or location.
Love it. I love it.
And as a bonus, I'm also on social media posting weekly short form videos, bite-sized videos every single day on social media, except for Saturdays. I'm off social media in honor of the Mother of God, the Theotokos, to behold God's face as my personal beauty retreat day. So I stay off tech devices. So there's a plethora of options, whether it's a course, trying it out, or on a free beauty webinar or a retreat, or just social media content for ongoing formation.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I think there's so much value that is that you are offering. So where can you just lay out the URLs, or where's the best place for people to find you, Maria?
The best place online website is beautyunbound.tv. So that's like television. So beautyunbound.tv. And across all social media platforms, same exact format, beautyunbound.tv. So on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on TikTok, the list goes on. So on Facebook as well. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and there you'll also find my personal social media handle, which is O'Maria Media. So that's my personal, more mixture of beauty, mixture of the things I love to do. And so
awesome.
There we have it.
Wonderful. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought that you can share with those who are hearing this. For those, especially young women who are struggling with beauty, based on what you've experienced in your life, how would you begin to speak to them?
I would say, draw near to the throne of grace. Whether or not the young woman gets to know beautyunbound.tv or not, I would say simply having the desire to want to realize your beauty. That desire is sufficient to begin the journey, because that desire, God meets us wherever we are and he draws us to himself. So that desire, I believe, is the prerequisite, so to speak. And I would say cultivate micro moments of silence in your day and simply ask God to speak his truth to you.
Well said. And I think it's that desire for beauty rightly aligned that will bring us to our heart's deepest desire. O'Maria, it has been a privilege and a pleasure to get to meet you again here on the podcast here, get to speak with you this day. Again, you can see all that O'Maria is involved with at beautyunbound.tv. If you'll hold on after I do some closing comments here, we'll finish up our conversation offline. But O'Maria, thank you for joining us on the Redeemed Vision podcast.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be here. I'll be back again. If I'm invited, we will do this again.
I want to talk about silence, so that we're gonna go deep into the silence here. But an honor to have you here today, and for all of those who have been listening to this very fascinating conversation, just as an encouragement, right? We are far greater than we give ourselves, that the world gives us credit for. We are far more beautiful than anything, the images that the world can give, and we are called to see ourselves and see others with a redeemed vision. So as the host of the Redeemed Vision podcast, Steve Pokorny, remember, we believe that nothing is wasted, everything is redeemable. So open up to that reality and watch how God changes everything in your life. God bless, and until next time, we look